Help! I'm finding the news really depressing. Should Christians even watch the news? I brought in some old friends today to discuss this very topic, Dr. Paulie B. and the Reformed mythologist. Is he reformed and a mythologist? Or has he reformed his previous non-mythologist ways and become one? It's not the subject of today's topic, but we welcome Nate Morgan-Locke, a.k.a. Nate Dog. Welcome, man. Thank you for coming. I'm just going to go on a little rant here, and then I'm going to ask for your help. Gentlemen, let's talk about parents-in-law. We've got them, and boy, do we love them. But there's a problem with parents-in-law. Do you want to know what that problem is? When they stay over my house, it gets to 10 o'clock, and I have to do something that I don't normally do. Do you know what that is?
No.
Watch the news.
The news, yeah.
Watching the news.
Yeah.
And recently, I can't stand it. Wave upon wave of depressing stories that I can't do anything about. And so a little Owen appears on my shoulder, firing Bible verses at me, like, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure and lovely and good, and have virtue, and if there's any praise, think on these things. Well, I ain't doing that when I'm watching the 10 o'clock news on the BBC.
Isn't that on ITN?
We're BBC people at 10 o'clock here, Paul.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Is it 9 o'clock? I don't know which ones.
Yeah.
Which ones?
Anyway.
What, there's no
Which,
10 o'clock BBC News?
No, I thought that was ITV had the 10 o'clock
yeah,
news.
ITV's 10.
Yeah.
But maybe they've got... It's 24-hour news. You can watch whatever news you want, whenever you want.
That's it.
All right, well, all I'm saying is we stopped watching the Olympics. We stopped watching the Olympics, and then all of a sudden there it appeared, and it seemed to be 10 o'clock.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't like it. You don't enjoy the experience.
Well, I better get back to my introduction before I was questioned on the time of the BBC 10 o'clock news around the time of the Olympics. Anyway, whatever time it was, I was thinking about those Bible verses. But then I thought, well, the Bible's full of news stories, and some of those are depressing and sad. So maybe this little Owen on my shoulder needs to stop firing those wildly out of context Bible verses at me. But then another Owen appeared on my shoulder, and it said, you can't just be concerned about your little world. You watch the news. It's God's world, and you should be helping and praying for these people and as many people as you can. And then my mind went back to 1993, where little Owen didn't have the internet and didn't watch the news, and I was so much happier. And I'm convinced, gentlemen, that the sense of emptiness that so many people feel today isn't just from secularism, but it's from technology and the fact that we turn on our phones and we read about stabbings and rapes and wars and suffering and cringe celebrity news every single day now, more than ever. I'm sure of it. So here's where I'm at. I think I'm over the news. And that's not because I want comfort in my life. I live for the Lord and my local church. That's my life. And I share in horrors and traumas with my people every single day. So I'm not switching off the news in order to go to a Cliff Richard concert and drink lemon tea all the days of my life. I mean, I was only saying to my wife yesterday, trauma only happens to a family maybe once or twice, like real trauma in their lifestyle. A minister shares in trauma several times a week, every week of their lives. So this ain't me turning off the news for some easy life. That's not what I'm about. But at least, if I pour into the local church and community, it feels like it's within my reach to do something about. And the Lord can use me for positive Christian saving change, as opposed to the news, which seems to be this weight which crashes down on us, but it's out of our reach. So I think I'm done with the news. Am I right or am I wrong? And before I bring you two in, just to end my bit, I asked some of my church members about this very thing, and they all said basically what I expected them to say, which was this. It's important to learn about God's world, and you can pray for people, and you might even be able to help people from learning. I get it. Although I'm not sure how many people really do turn off the news and then pray about what they just said. I get it, though.
Yeah.
Other people said, well, just one more thing on that. Also, though, if we are all praying about the BBC 10 o'clock news, which may at times be at 9, we're then at the behest of the BBC, who then dictates what we care about. And who are they to go handpicking certain stories? Why them? I'm not sure it's as broadly encompassing as we think it is. I've been in prayer meetings, by the way, where we have prayed about news, and the people praying sound like BBC presenters in their approach. It's like I've been in a left-wing BBC staff room meeting masked as a prayer meeting. Anyway, park that one. The others said, it's okay to watch it, Owen, but you can take a break. Don't forget that. I get it. No one said quit watching the news entirely. We're probably not going to conclude that here. This might be a waste of time, this video. So all in all, I'm going over to you, Nate.
Yeah.
What even is the news, and should we watch it? What's the point? Reel me in here, Nate. I'm losing it.
Well, so because you sent me a similar to what you've just said, little video message in which, I mean, I didn't hear about little Owen and little Owen, this little internal monologue that you've got going on. But you did share this frustration with this overwhelm of news, like flooded by, things that you can't do anything about. And it reminded me of a book by a man called Neil Postman, which is called Amusing Ourselves to Death. And he talks about something called the information action ratio. And that basically means so once you had news that was coming to you from further than your local town, so with the invention of the telegraph, like once information could be passed over great distances very quickly, what it gave people was decontextualized information. So they had information that they couldn't really do anything about. So if you're told, like, today it's going to rain where you live, you can make an action, you can take a decision based on that information that will affect the way you live your life in that day. But if you find out that there's a, heavy rainfall 300 miles away, what are you going to do with that? You just know it, and you can't do anything about that. So he said that because of the technology giving you access to more information from further away, it led to a completely different information action ratio. So you had all this information that you didn't know what to do with. It was decontextualized. It wasn't relevant to what you were going to be doing that day. It wasn't going to change your plans in any way. And he said that led to a feeling of impotence and powerlessness because, oh my goodness, there's all this stuff going on and I can't do anything about it. And I think the information that we're getting is typically very negative and shocking and scandalous and bad because that's the stuff that's most sort of sticky and sweet for gossip. Is bad news travels very, very quickly. And so the news has a kind of, they've loaded the dice so that you're not getting just here's a random selection of things that happen in the world, but here are basically the worst things that have happened in as much detail as possible because that will keep you watching for longer. And one example of that, sorry, before I let you guys come back in, but so sometimes when they're talking about the weather and they'll show the map of the UK or something, and then it'll be, the temperature's going to be like 27 degrees here and here and here and here. And what they've done is I think they've changed the colors they use to show what temperature it is so that now if it gets above like 23 degrees, it's like bright red, like fire red, as though lava is covering the entire British Isles, because they're trying to kind of keep us on edge. That's a slightly different point. Like that's how the news is being shared, rather than this idea of, as I say, decontextualized information, or the kind of information action ratio.
A very pertinent point from Mr. Postman. And then did he go on to say, well, what do we do about that problem of impotency in this context?
He doesn't really go on to it, but I must say, I should share this with you. I was talking to a friend about this book the other day, and he said he was reading it, and he got about halfway through a paragraph, and he went, "Stop. Wait a minute, Mr. Postman." No, he didn't.
Wow. That was good. Stop.
I had to share that joke. It was too good not to reference. I heard it yesterday. I had to pass it on.
It took me a second to go.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. No, he didn't. He doesn't really say this is what we ought to do. But one of the things he's because it's all about the medium is the message, which is a Marshall McLuhan quote, which isn't really from Neil Postman, but because it's about not just the content. He's not just talking about like what information are you being given, but how is that information presented to you changes the way that you feel about it. And by he's talking about the advent of television. So this is like 1985 that he publishes this book. And his point is that television is the move from word-based communication and to image-based. And that has more kind of shock value and is more kind of addictive. And you don't think about it as carefully. So there's a difference between like reading a newspaper each day and watching the news. And I think your point is about how you can't really escape watching the news. It's just on there in front of you. It's just happening. You have to actively kind of turn it off. Whereas if it's a newspaper, you have to give your attention to it sufficiently that you're reading what it says. I don't know what this means about radio, but...
So, before I bring Paul in, do you watch the news, Nate? And if so, why?
I don't watch the news because it's 2024 and I've got a smart telephone, and that gives me micro news on social media, and that's like a whole different problem. But yeah, so my issue is I'm sort of addicted to scrolling through decontextualized information, which is kind of aggregated from all the people in the world through, the platforms of multi-billionaires. But I don't watch the actual news. My parents do, and if I go to to see them, I'll often sit and watch it with them and be like, how can anyone watch this? It's just
the very last question then for you is, why do you read it on your phone? Like, what's it achieving?
It's achieving nothing. It's making my day worse, but it's so addictive. It's the most, so it's all about it's like the attention economy. We're all made to give our attention to stuff. And the cleverest people who make the technology have designed it to be as addictive as possible. So there are, it's called persuasive technologies. So all the stuff about notifications, all the stuff about like the endless scrolling, so that you're never kind of finished. There's always more. It's going to refresh. It's going to be targeted. If you click on something, it's going to learn that you've clicked on that, so it wants to give you more of what you like, because then it keeps you on the platform for longer. So it's all of those things about trying to grab and hold your attention, and it's very, very difficult to resist. So I struggle, but I don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Well, I'm starting to feel even worse. Paul, what have you got to say about these things?
So just the word news is like immensely important in this because,
Ooh.
and this goes right back to the Advent.
Wait. Does it mean north, east, south,
No,
west?
no. Well, in this context, it just is like, and this goes right back to the advent of the modern news, like revolution with newspapers that would be produced and sell immensely, and and the content in them, if you track it over 200 years, kind of fascinating because the word new, as Nate is saying, that is the only important thing, new, so that you have to buy the next one.
Right,
Like, I've
yeah,
got to
yeah.
buy the next one. So in the past, they would try things like serialization of novels, like Dickens or Conan Doyle, and people would serialize in newspapers because it's the new chapter. It's in the newspaper, the new thing. And then they discovered, like stories about what's happening in the world. There's always new stuff for that, or we can generate the feeling of that, and let's like have more and more reporters from around that can say, "Oh, here's something new. Here's something new. Here's something new," and that. Whereas, like you were saying, in your immediate neighborhood, it's not. Like, okay, a minister has more kind of new things, like stories, but for most people, life isn't just full of new things. It's actually mostly the same things with a few peaks every now and again. That's normal life, but that's no good commercially. So the news, when people talk about news as if it's somehow altruistic or worthy or noble to know what's going on, no, it's not. It's utterly sordid. It's utterly sordid. It's got nothing to do with us, what's happening anywhere else in the world. And when people say, no, it's important to know what's going on in the world. Shut up, you utter fool. You don't know anything about what's going on in the world. The most you ever know, even if whether we aggregate from all our news sources, and then what that does is channels us into an ever narrower colossal pile of our own prejudices because the algorithm goes, oh, you liked that one, that one, you watched the whole of it. I now know more about your political biases, the kind of news you're into. So over time you just get this enormous stack of even bigger prejudices. But the point, and we all know that's true, and it's the idea that it's got anything to do with a noble knowledge. It's important to know what's going on in God's world. No, it is not. That is the business of the divine emperor. He does that. And his whole point is, what on earth are you trying to do? You know nothing. Like, there are literally billions of stories going on in the world today. Or even if we just took big storylines, there's like hundreds of thousands of them. And none of those get covered. Why not? Because they're not interesting enough, or the poor people far away. And whereas, like a story like Russia and Ukraine, that's going to be on the news every single day, and there's whole tabs for it. But proportionate number of people involved. There's other conflicts going on in the world at the moment that are bigger, more people involved, but they get no tabs. Why? Well, people aren't interested in that. So it's like, so people go, I'm standing with this person, this group, this nation. Shut up! You're not interested, really. You're just wanting to get on a bandwagon, or just be like, oh, there's really interesting stuff on this. Or I think it's important to take this view of this subject. Shut up! That's my point. We don't know anything about any of these things, really. And what we like to do is moralize. We don't really. There's occasionally a very small number of people who actually do something about something that's in the news. But in truth, nobody does. Nobody does. But what we do think's important is, I'm going to give a thumbs up to that viewpoint. Well, I've done something. I have the right view of this. And then it's like, that's important to have the right view of this. And you've no idea, we don't know. Like, we don't know. And that's why local church is so important. There are local churches in those environments that probably really do know. And if we really cared and really wanted to be involved, we could then partner with a church in a part of the world, and they might say, okay, actually, this is the need that we are encountering. This is what we need to like hold up the way of Jesus and do something. This, but we don't do that. Very small number of us do that. So I really get upset when people think that listening to the news has some sort of moral worth. It has moral worth in the sense that it shows we are immoral. It's debauched to do it because it's literally trying to displace Christ and taking his, like in the terms of a mythological kind of view of the universe. It says, which Nate loves, but it is that attempt that we are attempting to take a viewpoint, like sit on a throne and go, like let me see what's going on in the world. That's not a role that you have in the play that we're in. That is a person's role in the play that we are in, to look at everything, understand it properly. And then there's a hierarchy. There are some people who have responsibilities, who are leading nations or empires and things. And that to them, they have responsibilities to know quite a lot of what's going on in different ways. But it all comes down and you think, now what is my responsibility here where I am? What is the perspective that matters? That that raises all sorts of questions as well. But so to me, the word news tells you it's entertainment. It's nothing to do with really information. So that the amount of genuine, useful information that comes via news is, minuscule. It's essentially an entertainment exercise, commercially driven. That's what it is. And then what we believe we're doing in relation to that commercial entertainment exercise it shows our moral corruption and how stupid we are. Because I'll just give you this tiny example. There is a part of the world that I'm like very interested in that occurs very sometimes in the news, and I listen to somebody from who engages with the issues in this part of the world, and I've been listening to them almost daily for 2 years, and after all that time I'm sort of like, okay, I think I'm beginning to understand really what's going on there. And even now I'm hesitant about leaping to massive, large-scale mythological conclusions about it. And yet, I'll talk to somebody and they'll say, I saw this 4-minute segment on BBC the other night, and this is what I think. It's like, what? The arrogance, the ludicrousness. And also, the final thing I'll say, and then I'll shut up, is just the sense of the crushing weight, and this is point Owen, little Owen and all that sort of thing, and is Jesus says, and this, it's my favourite bit of the Bible, and I know it's in the New Testament, which is weird, but nevertheless, it's that end of Matthew 11. I know, and it's almost worthy of Moses or something, it's so good, but it's when Jesus says, all authority in heaven and earth has been handed to me. I'm carrying the universe. And no one knows no one knows me except the Father. No one knows the Father except the Son, and those to whom he will reveal him. But look, just come to me if you're weary and crushed and worn out, and learn how to manage life the proper way. And it's easy with me. And the reason he can say that is because he begins by saying, I'm carrying the universe. And he's really saying, don't get into lifestyles and assumptions and beliefs that make you think you got to do what I got to do. I like doing what I do, and I've been eternally equipped for this thing. You haven't. I have equipped you to manage one day at a time with just kind of daily bread troubles and things in mind. And then my one little final proviso is, I know, because the Bible has something of an international flavour to it at times, where it looks around other events going on in the world. But it doesn't really look at them in that way. What it does is everything is looked at through the perspective of church life. That's what it does. So you don't get Moses commenting, say, something like, I'm not at all happy with the new Egyptian policy on agricultural irrigation techniques, or what is Persia up to with the new taxation rates, or there's nothing of that in the Bible. Nobody does it. Or Jesus never says anything about international or even national politics, actually. He says nothing about slavery or wars or, any policies at all. Healthcare policies, aqueducts. We need more aqueducts in Canaan or something. There's nothing of any of that. Why not? Shouldn't he be interested? What's the matter with him? Is it he has access to lots of international news. Where he grew up was international Silk Road. He would have had access to news from all over the world. Why isn't he updating people on it? Why isn't he raising awareness about what's going on in the Indian empires or something? He isn't. Why not? Why not? Why don't the apostles get involved in who the senators should vote for in the Roman Empire? What policies would be good? They don't do any of that, because what matters to us? What matters to us? What is our responsibility? Every person's responsibility is not any of those things. Our real ground zero of responsibility is this: love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and your neighbour as yourself. Start there. And then, okay, there's an international collection. The church in Jerusalem, they're hungry. Let's have a whip round for them. But again, it's churches relating to churches to do something practical about it. They don't go, I'll tell you the real problem here. It's the agricultural policies pursued by Tiberius or something, and that's why there's hunger. We need to go upstream to sort out the reason for the hunger. You're like, nah, forget all that rubbish. Really, that's not our responsibility, really. Nobody in the Bible. The people who maybe, King David maybe had to worry about things like that, but you don't. So that's all my big splurge.
It's difficult to know where you stand on things, Paul, because you're so mellow and withdrawn.
No, I'm sorry. Look, I need to start coming down on one side or the other. But even just to the direct question, don't listen to any news.
Yeah, all right. Well, after I want to jump in a bit. Well, first of all, rapid fire to things that you just said. Didn't the Screwtape letters come out as initial blitzes that got put into...
Did they? I didn't know that. That's fun, that. I can imagine. I would buy a newspaper for something like that, I have to say, yeah.
It might be wrong, because I think I heard it on the 10 o'clock BBC News. But anyway, what I like about denominations as opposed to independency, one strength is you've often got a history of church plants across the world, and you can get to know the Christians in other churches and support them quite a lot more easily than outright independency, I've found. So we often have churches in Mizoram and other places in India coming on to our sessions and updating us about the persecution at the moment, actually. So church to church thing where you were saying there, like from the model in Acts, and where they all gather and then go out. I think that's bang on. But a few things to come back at you. The Lord Jesus does talk about rumours of wars. So I guess you've got to hear of them somewhere.
Oh, yeah, but what does he say? He goes, you're going to hear about wars and rumours of wars. Don't pay any attention to that. So he's like, well, I'm telling you, unsubscribe from all that rubbish, because you will think it's the end of the world, but it isn't.
Would you know, there's a great phrase that's been out recently that people have used, like, everything I've learned about X, I've learned against my will. Have you heard that?
No,
So
go
it's
on.
like, so people say something about, like, mention some, like, incredibly kind of superficial celebrity gossip type thing. But somehow that is so ubiquitous, it's everywhere, you can't avoid it. Like it's like literally impossible to live in even your local community without hearing the name of this person or knowing something about it. And so to the point about rumors of wars, the like the news at one level is unavoidable
Yeah.
because that's just the nature of the world, is that people are talking about stuff and gossiping and saying things that they, don't know anything about, or reporting stuff, or just like, because people just talk and people produce media and people report things to each other and tell stuff to each other all the time. And so there is a level at which it's like, yeah, you're just going to hear a whole bunch of stuff. The question is, what are you giving your attention to? What are you choosing to study? What are you
Nice.
consciously placing before your mind's eye, or even before your physical eyes? And those are things that you're going to be able to affect to some level, right? You can so one of the things I say on the end of every Reformed Mythologist video is media consumption is optional. You are under no obligation to watch these movies, listen to this music, or attend these concerts or whatever it is. It is optional. So just like, what would you like to give your attention to? And I think when you're feeling swept up in these big institutions of the media, you feel like, oh no, I have to watch. This is must-see TV. This is absolutely essential viewing. Like, you have to read this. You have to watch this. You have to. And
All
I
right.
think, yeah.
So let's draw a few things together. Paul, your Facebook feed is full of news and things going on, and you usually, well, in fact, always bring it back to the Lord Jesus in some way or another. So this is backing up Nate's point that we are all, and the Lord Jesus' point, going to come across news, right? Unavoidable. Your point then, though, Paul, are you saying we shouldn't ever actively get into news? And I think my question is really, are you saying unless you can go all in and be absolutely thorough, don't dip your toe in at all? Because, I mean, if people took that and ran with it, then nobody's watching the 10 o'clock BBC News.
Oh, that'd be brilliant, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be amazing if the entire structure of the international news networks collapsed because no one was interested in it? Oh, just let me. Oh, that's beautiful. That's a lovely thought.
What's wonderful about that is, so when there's the riot in Ephesus, it's because the Christians are disrupting the local economy because they're refusing to buy the silversmith's shrine stuff. So, we often people talk about, if we just all do this together, we can like make a change in the world. Maybe we all switch off. Like,
I mean, that is happening with the big news network. BBC, MSNBC, CNN, Fox, I guess, all of them. The audiences are just like so shrunken compared to what they once were, and they are still shrinking, and they are having massive. BBC is living in this bubble of the license fee, but obviously that's going to end sooner or later, and then they won't have that enormous, that propping up thing. And so they can't do the kind of news coverage they once did, and it's shrinking down and down. So for me, let's get rid of, forget the whole, remember, it is nothing to do with education and information, really. It's everything to do with entertainment and commercial entertainment. That's what essentially it is. And then peripherally, you might acquire some tiny snippets of vaguely interesting information, but it's nothing actually to do with education and information. Remember that. So it's when you're watching news or aggregately or one of those like dinosaur fixed hour kind of presentations that the BBC still apparently do and that sort of thing. Whatever it is, just remember what you were doing is entertainment. It's not anything more than that. So as I'm like saying, if you're doing it and you like that entertainment, it's on the same level as watching the football match or watching an episode of Friends or something. It's the same essential level as that. Don't believe yourself to be morally superior in any way, shape or form. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, just know what you're doing. Like, all of these news agencies have a very strong agenda, a kind of what they want. Because they'll even say, we want our people to take particular views of things and the selection of what stories they're covering. They're doing something. They're shaping you. They see what they think is important. Like, this is important for people, and I want people to take a view of it. And the editors do that very deliberate. So if you do engage with it, just like, and then now, of course, young people know this so instinctively that they don't need to be told that there's an agenda behind it all. So that to watch it, you are not listening to genuine kind of objective information. You're listening to an agency with an agenda, and you must respond accordingly. So that, but yeah, to me, I sort of basically kind of just avoid it all, or I quite consciously choose because now you can have available to you, as Nate was saying, you can choose how you get news and be very selective and deselect as well. And so if I do want to know news, I kind of do it in that way deliberately. For example, if I'm saying, here's a story that's out in the news at the moment, I always listen to multiple opposing agenda outlets. So just to be very caricatured about it, if I read something from the Telegraph, I'll read the same story covered by the Guardian, say. And then I'll be like, oh man, that's like a totally different way of looking at it. Or, and just to make a very simple caricatured example, that's just simple things.
So one of the things, again, and maybe this is a sort of protection, as you're saying, how do you watch the news or how do you take that in? So I think I have a kind of predisposition to analyze how something's being communicated, not just what's being communicated.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are like that. So you think about, how is this person communicating this information and what technically is involved. Now, you can deconstruct everything and say there's no meaning to anything because it's all just a set of syntax and sentence structures, and it's all just about the structural analysis. However, this is what's going on in the studio, and here's where the camera's moving, and this is the font they've chosen to use, and this is the person they've asked to speak about it, and this is the language they've used for this, and this is how long this bit of news. So it is a bit of a structural analysis, which means that you can lose the meaning, and you can't really look at the whole world like that all the time because it just has no value. But it does allow you to think about the way that things are being told to you, not just what it is that's being told to you. I think there's some value in that.
All right, let's wrap it up. Incidentally, just on my brother-in-law was in the news last month, and it was a bit of a hit piece, and they told absolute lies about him. And it was an eye-opener for us as a family about the license of lying that some of the reporters have, and just how many people I think I know from reading about them, but I don't know them because I've been told lies about them. It was an eye-opener and something to consider. Anyway, let us draw this to an end. We seem to say that entertainment's fine, enjoy entertainment, it's a gift of God. We're not calling the world to withdraw from all forms of entertainment, although obviously some are obviously sinful that should be avoided. But we're also seemingly saying, as my voice is gone, be careful what we give our care and energies to, because Christians are called to love the Lord and their neighbour and to make positive changes therein, which for us comes through church. And it seems to be that church and then multinational church connections seem to be better way of spending energy than draining ourselves too much with the news. If we care for the world, that's often a good way to help the world. And don't be fooled if you are a news watcher that you're on some sort of higher moral plane than those who choose not to watch it. Gentlemen, any final comments?
Can I recommend something? I'd love to hear what you think about this. I came up with a phrase the other day. I was writing some stuff about the attention economy and storytelling and stuff. And I wrote down this phrase, and I was really, really proud of myself. And the phrase was, "We become what we behold," right? So I was like, Nate, you just nailed it. You have absolutely, you can put the pen down. You don't need to write anything else for the rest of the week. That is a sentence to chew on for weeks now. So it's like, we become what we behold. I was really proud of myself. But then I thought, do you know what? It's a good chance someone's used that before. Because I'm not that clever. So I put it into the google.com search engine. I don't know if either of you have ever used it. And turns out it was popularized by William Blake, who was a poet, right? He used it in a poem about Albion and the emanation of Jerusalem or something. Anyway, so I read through that and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I found that someone's made a little very, very, very short, very, very, very simple video game called We Become What We Behold.
Wow.
So what I want the two of you to do is to go away, play that little game, and then I think it'd be quite interesting to chat about it, maybe in a forum like this, because it's on this topic.
Oh, wow.
So it literally, the whole game takes you less than 10 minutes and you've finished it. But
Well, maybe our viewers can play it too. And stick it in
Yeah.
the comments. Oh, no,
Stick
I
it in
turned
the
comments off.
comments. Yeah.
No, I turned comments off because it was just abuse.
Oh.
Yeah.
Uh,
Just
Yeah.
my only final thought comment was just that thing about caring, like just that caring for people. And there's hardly anyone, who like both has this big care for the whole world kind of thing and cares for the person living next door to them. And what they'll do, I've changed my background on Facebook because I'm standing with, I don't know, I don't even want to say a country now because everyone will go, what's going on there? As soon as I mention it. No, but you know what I mean? And I'm saying that's nothing. That does nothing. Or doing this or doing, nothing. But, like, on my street, in my area, there's loads of people who have needs, and my local church is really where it all happens. Church is just full of people with need, and the Lord designed that and said, there you go, if you've got a big heart and you want to make a difference, you want to care for people, go for it. Here's a church family. I'll send even more needy people if you get through them. I've got tons available. So do you know what I mean? It's like that sense of like, and this has been through a lot what both of you guys have been saying about this, like, say, here are a million things to care about. Yeah, but they're not for you to care about. But this lady is, this kid is, this old man is, and do I?
Yeah. And someone might come back there and say, well, you can do both. You can watch the 10 o'clock news on BBC.
If you've got if you've got such a massive heart as big as Jesus, and you're loving and caring for millions of people, wow, okay, lovely. But I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
No, and it drains you more than you think and affects your speech and your actions with your local neighbours more than you think as well. All right. Nate Morgan-Locke, Dr. Paul Blackham. Oh, is there a Christian news channel which is all just about the churches going on in the world? And if not, Nate, why don't you start one?
I think everyone's had enough internet for today. So everyone could just turn off, close the laptop, put your phone down, go and do something else.
Go and help someone.
Go and help someone, or go and be nice to the people you live with. Go on, try it.
Nice.
All right. Thank you for joining me, gentlemen. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the Lord Jesus Christ. And we'll see you at the next one.